Hello, hi. So, this story has been taking rounds in social media about this guy Philip Craig, who's for the independence of the Western Cape, and I found it interesting that it's, it has just gained momentum just now. It's always been there. It's always been there in the Western Cape. People have been talking about it, and I remember Joshua Maponga in this interview with I don't remember if it was Penwell. He was talking about that same issue that the Western Cape wants independence, or this guy Philip Craig wants the Western Cape to be independent, and he was asking why doesn't KZN wants independence. This is a very controversial issue because our recent polls have shown that the Western Cape people want the independence, 68% of them to be precise. And yeah, it's controversial because the guy is British. He came to South Africa 20 years ago. So his citizenship in South Africa is a privilege. So as to say, it's not necessarily like mine. I mean, I was born here. I'm South African. So he came from Britain, and it's also interesting that a British man once is advocating for an independent Cape Town. It has all elements of of colonization. It's like they're colonizing the Cape right now. But it's gonna be interesting how the story develops because there's too many questions that we have to ask ourselves as South Africans. Why does this have to concern us as South Africans? Can it happen? And if it happens, what would happen to the whole South Africa? What would happen to the whole diaspora of the continent of Africa? So we should be concerned about this story, and I think it's a great mistake for the people of Cape Town to advocate for this. It's not a good thing for the whole of South Africa, even for Cape Town, because if you see Cape Town, the development there, they claim that it's the outperforming city in South Africa. But when you see places like Khayelitsha, the crime in Khayelitsha, when you see the homelessness, when you see the shacks in Khayelitsha, you're like, nah, these guys aren't doing as they say they are. Things aren't as good as they claim to be. So it's interesting that this story broke out just after the JNU and the DA being part of the JNU, because some members of the DA feel like this is a good cause. They feel like it should be that the Cape Town gains independence from South Africa. And it's interesting that the people have been asking for a referendum for the independence of the Western Cape for a while now. They've been pushing the DA to write this referendum. They've been pushing other political parties. I think it's like 6 political parties in the Western Cape now who supports this referendum, who are behind this independence of the Western Cape. I might be mistaken because I haven't took much time reading on this, but I think here's what I think about this situation. Can it happen? Yes, it can happen. The answer is pretty easy. We've seen it in historically, we've seen it in history, we've seen it in Israel and Palestine. It can happen. It can happen. It definitely can happen. How we don't know how, but it can happen. What would happen should this referendum succeed? I won't see a referendum succeeding because provinces are given limited power in South Africa. They don't have any power to change the constitution, and it is unconstitutional that's a province or someone divides South Africa. Why should we be concerned? First of all, the Western Cape is a port. So it is a trade center. It is a trade port. Everything coming in South Africa comes in via the USA. You would see when you shop something, when you buy something from these online companies, these international companies like Amazon, Temu, Shein, you would see that all your products come via the Western Cape. So it is an important trade port. Majority of South African imports and exports happen via the Western Cape. So shall the Western Cape become independent? That means we don't have a port anymore. That means the Western government, the British government, the British, whatever it will be called, or whatever it will be called by then, they will decide what goes in South Africa, what comes out in South Africa, what happens in South Africa. They will be like the lookout for the Western government, because I'm sure that this idea is not. This idea is not just Phil Craig's feelings. It's not just him. There's people backing him. There's people donating to him. There's people supporting this idea. There's governments supporting this idea. It will be beneficial for the Western governments, the US, Britain, and all the NATO countries. It would be beneficial for them to have a country in Africa like Israel in the Middle East. Excuse me. It will be beneficial to them to have a country in Africa which would keep all the other African countries in check. This is checks and balances. This is a checks and balances issue. So if the Western Cape gains independence, the West establishes a military base in the Western Cape. Same as Israel and Palestine. That's what happened. When Israel was established, the West came and built a military base in Israel, funded Israel, funded the occupation. They did that. That could happen to us in South Africa. So we should be concerned. It should be our concern that there's people who utter such bullshit, because it's bullshit. It can never happen. This can never happen. I almost feel like this is an act of war. Because why do you want to divide a country? Why do you want to do that? Is it racist? Is it colonialism? Whatever it is, it cannot happen. It cannot happen. And South Africans, we should be concerned. We should be utterly concerned about this issue. I don't care where you are. Even Cape Townians should be concerned about this issue. Because this is an act of war. It's an act of war. This referendum shall not succeed. It would never succeed. Not under the People's Watch. Not under your watch, not under my watch. It should never succeed. And I have to be very careful how I speak. I have to be very careful how I speak because I'm a young lad. I'm a young man, and I still have aspirations. And whatever I say could be used against me in the future. But I feel like we have to get to a point where everyone wakes up and sees this government for what it is. This GNU, whatever it is. Because the president is affiliated with the West. He's affiliated with the US, with Britain, with these NATO countries. He's affiliated with them. And he's brought the DA. Now the DA is a Western party. It's a Western party. It's Western funded. It holds Western ideas. Like it stands on Palestine and Israel. The DA is like, nah, we're pro-Israel, bro. The ANC is supposed to be pro-Palestine. That's what it's supposed to be. But it is difficult for the president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, to take a stance on that. It's very difficult because he is funded by the West. So it's interesting that after this development of the GNU, this story gains momentum. It's very, what's the word? It's very coincidental. It's very coincidental that during the elections, this story, no one heard of this story. This story was just quiet because the DA knew that it would affect them. It would affect them, and so they suppressed the story. The story just went quiet. Now after the GNU and all this shit, the story resurfaces. So we should be concerned as South Africans. It can happen because the West are bullies. These guys are bullies. You are dealing with bullies. It definitely can happen. When you are dealing with bullies, you have to be a bully too. So our affiliation with the West, it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us, not at all. It doesn't serve us. But I have hope in the opposition parties in parliament. I have hope in our affiliation with Russia and China through BRICS. That's such I don't know what to call it, because it baffles me. It completely baffles me how a British citizen, a British man, could come here in South Africa and demand things and try to divide South Africa. It's so barbaric, and it's certainly an act of violence. It's certainly an act of war. It's terrorism in a sense. It's terrorism, because how do you want to divide a country, a united country? How do you want to change the constitution of a country? You're not even South African, bro. So it's really interesting how this story develops. But nah, we can't allow this in South Africa. We can't be for this. Yeah.